Well, I'm here today with Matt and Susan and Annabelle. She's probably going to steal the show. But Matt and Susan live in Jordan. And we had the privilege, our team that was in Israel and Jordan earlier this year had the privilege of having dinner with them. And they originally had gone to Syria to do work with churches there and got ran out of Syria with the war that's going on there. And wondered what God was up to, and God was bringing Syrians to them in Jordan, along with helping the Jordanian church. So, a lot going on. If you're paying attention, and no doubt you are, the previous post was about the Assyrians, and it's a totally different group of people. The Assyrian people are from northern Iraq. We're talking today about the Syrian people who are from Syria, totally different group of people, same rough area, and all involved in the same issues. But the Syrian refugee crisis is crazy. The Christians have been run out. Some of the same problems. But I want you to hear from Matt and Susan. They've chosen to invest their life in these folks, doing an incredible job. And I want you to hear what's going on in the church. I want you to hear about the needs. And so, Matt, tell us what's going on, what you guys do. And
Yeah, thanks, Joe. We arrived in Jordan 2 years ago, and when we arrived, there were, I think, about less than 50,000 Syrian refugees who had fled from Syria into the country of Jordan. And that was just 2 years. 2 years ago, really, just before our daughter was born. And we thought that was a lot. We thought, oh man, 50,000 Syrian refugees in the country of Jordan. This is a huge need, a huge humanitarian need, and also a great opportunity to reach a people that for decades and decades have been closed to the gospel, because Syria was a country that was very difficult to work for the kingdom.
Christians there, but
there were Christians there
from ancient times.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Christians there, but they were very much on a survival footing, just trying to exist. Not a lot of outreach to Muslims happening at that time, and Christian workers from outside the country had a very difficult time.
And as we
staying
were
in the country.
talking,
Yeah.
even Christians sharing the gospel
Yeah.
with other cultural Christians to actually have a
Exactly.
relationship with the Lord, just tremendous fear,
Yeah,
persecution.
yeah. Syria has been a police state for decades, and if you want to survive in a police state, you keep your head down, and you don't want to stick up, especially when it comes to religion and things like that.
Now, where were you? Aleppo or?
Well, we were on our way to live in Damascus.
In
yes.
Damascus,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And then at the last minute, we shot off to Jordan. Prior to the war starting in Syria, the Syrian economy was probably doing better than the Jordanian economy. They have a little bit more natural resources at their disposal than Jordan does, because, as you know, Jordan has no oil. There's zero wealth coming into the country because of oil. It's very hampered by a lack of water. There's a severe lack of water in the country of Jordan.
Moses had a problem with that when he was there.
Absolutely, yeah. And we haven't been able to replicate his technique.
You haven't
either.
hit that rock?
No,
Okay.
we haven't hit the right one. So to experience a 20% increase in your population from refugees into a country that is already struggling economically is an immense burden for the country of Jordan. And
So is the country absorbing this? Is the UN funding this? How are these
Yeah.
people surviving?
Well, about 20%, so far about 20% of the refugees are living in refugee camps, and 80% are living outside of refugee camps in just the cities and towns.
So they've
across
just
Jordan.
gone into the cities. Okay.
Because the country of Jordan is not able to sustain or meet the needs of over 1 million Syrian refugees. The government of Jordan is doing a valiant effort with the resources that they have, but they're not able to meet the needs of all these refugees. And so,
Well, as we've talked about, the king of Jordan's been good friends with the United States for a long time. We've had a very good relationship.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So these refugees, these urban refugees, these are the 80%. They're left to fend for themselves for the most part in the cities and towns across Jordan. There are some services that are available to them, but we've also seen in the past year, because the numbers have risen so dramatically, that the services that are available to them are very difficult to access and minimal in the lives of most of the refugees. So in the city that we live in, small city, less than 100,000 citizens, there are now 10,000 registered refugees living in our city, and they're living everywhere. They live blocks from our house, and just really any usable.
Tents,
Some tents, some spare rooms, basements, shacks, abandoned buildings, little very inexpensive apartments where they'll put 3 or 4 families in one apartment. That really just anywhere that they can find to give them some shelter, they're living in those places. So.
Matt, I want to come back. We'll come back to the ministry side of this, but Susan, let's talk about. I don't know your background, but here's this little American girl sitting in the middle of a sandbox in Jordan. A huge statement of your faith. How do you handle it? How's your parents handling this?
Good questions.
Where are you from?
I'm just a little East Tennessee farm girl.
Okay.
Grew up in the hills of East Tennessee, barefooted most of the time, and suddenly I find myself, like you said, in the middle of a sandbox. But it took several steps, obviously, for the Lord to prepare my heart and to be able to say yes to going and serving in Jordan as we do. It didn't just happen from the farm to Jordan. There was lots of steps in my testimony.
Lots of small steps of faith to get
me there. And of course, when the opportunity came, it was just obvious that's where I needed to be, and that's where He called me. And so I feel that it's a privilege for us to be there serving, being the hands and feet of many people who don't want to go, can't go, those who have the money and the resources to funnel it but don't have the time to be there. I feel like we are privileged to have the jobs that we have, honestly. And so, life looks a little different being there now that we've started a family there. Changes things a little bit, but overall, it's exciting to see what the Lord's doing.
I think people are surprised too, even though again, we have a great relationship with Jordan, and people get nervous nonetheless. Sure. That's just how we are, but the fear of the unknown. But what's your experience? How do the Jordanian, Syrian families, how are you treated?
With the women, I'm almost treated like a sister at times, where I'm coming in and they want to know as much about me as I want to know about them. And they're women just like any other place in the world. They obviously live a little differently, especially with the Muslim women that we meet. But overall, hospitality is huge for them, and
being wives, being mothers.
Yeah. And so now that I have a child, that's an immediate open door because it's something that they can relate to. Whereas before, I was just another girl, so to speak.
Moved you to a different status.
Yeah. But now having a child, it's something that we can relate to on a deeper level. And I find that it's actually opening doors for me to speak into some of the women's lives, just in the ways that I am training her and raising her slightly different, and obviously with a different kind of faith. And that itself tends to speak to them, and they'll ask questions.
Well, let's be honest. There's probably a sense in them that's is uncomfortable. They've heard lots of things about Americans, just like people be like, "Oh, I don't know if I could go to Jordan."
Yeah.
So they're working through some of that too, and they find out that you're just like them. And
when we had our baby there, we had her there in the hospital there in Jordan, and none of our family was able to come, and so it was the locals. And so I was driving back from the elevator, and I was trying to arrange driving back from the hospital, and having to arrange locals to meet us at our house to help me carry my wife and the baby and all our stuff up the house, up our stairs into our apartment. And they were cleaning our house for us just because they loved us and were taking care of us and bringing us food and stuff like that. So when we started a family in the midst of Jordanians and refugees, they were the ones who were giving us gifts and taking care of us and being our family during that time. And we were at their mercy, so to speak, as most new parents are. Right. You're at the mercy of your friends and family to take care of you. And here we are at their mercy to welcome us and welcome us into their family. And so our relationships with refugees who knew us and with our Jordanian hosts really elevated when we started a family there. And so we have Syrian refugees that call us and come and visit us and ask us, how are you doing with your baby? And do you need any help? And can we help you? And I say, we're here to help you. You're the refugee. And here they are pouring into our lives and taking care of us just as much as we are taking care of them. So.
What a great story. Well, yeah, and we talked too earlier about, that, perhaps this situation with ISIS and everything that's playing out, might do more to expand the Church of Jesus as people realize that, I need a God of love, a God of forgiveness, a God of hope. And I know you guys we talked about it in Jordan, that you were frustrated that, God, we prepared all this time to be in Damascus, and now we're being run out. And, and now God's bringing the Syrians right to you. And, and you're helping them and the Jordanian church. What's besides, we know the fact that it's slow going, a lot of relationship building amongst Arab people, and and their trust level is I don't blame them, but give us some of the victories. What's some of the things that have happened?
Well, you're absolutely right. We have to invest in relationships over the long run, and we don't know when the victory is going to happen. It's going to be a phone call in the middle of the night, or it's going to be a chance visit on the sidewalk or something like that. And there was a family that we had begun a relationship with shortly after we got there. They were a refugee family, and we 2 years ago we met them, and we started getting to know them and visiting them in their home and where they were living, and taking them food here and there, but just building a relationship with them. Usually when we visit a refugee family, we're there for at least an hour, and we'll do that.
People that don't understand how Arab culture is.
That's 4 or 5 cups of coffee, 2 cups of tea, a sweet, a pastry, some baklava, something like that, all while sitting on the floor generally, because they're refugees and they have literally nothing, but they will give you everything that they possibly can get if they have to send their kids down the sidewalk with their last cash that they have to buy us something to give us. But this family that we started visiting 2 years ago really welcomed us. And a Muslim family, it's a man and his wife, an older man and his wife, and 2 20-something sons and one of their wives. They have another son who is still in Syria, who was unable to leave Syria. So this relationship continued for some time. We talked to them about the gospel, prayed with them. They were always welcoming of the message and the prayer, but they had not made a commitment or made a decision for Christ yet. But the relationship persisted. And one time this summer, one day I was at Arabic class actually, and the phone rang, and it was the wife, and she called, and she just said this: "Our son has been shot. Can you come and pray?" And of course, and I said, absolutely, of course, we're on our way. So we loaded up the car and we go over to their house, and as any mother and father would be upon the news that their child is in another country and he's been shot in a war, they were distraught, and their faces were drawn and generally very welcoming and exuberant in their excitement to be with us. They were obviously relieved that we were there, but they were very preoccupied, and their hearts and their minds were with their son in Syria, as any parent would be.
Absolutely.
But their first call, that was their first call. That was their first response, was, let's call those Christians that we know that have been loving us for 2 years.
You built a relationship.
And call them and say, can you come and pray for us and pray for our son? That was their response. That was in the midst of all of that hurt. Their hearts told them that they could call us, and we would come, and we would love them, and we would pray for them, and that would mean something, and that would matter. And of course, we spent some time with them. We prayed, and we sent them off because they were going to go to Syria to be with their son. They were going to sneak through the border and go to help him, and then return. And ever since that happened, our relationship, they returned about 2 weeks later, our relationship with that family has been different, and they have been a part of church, and they have been really seeking the Lord and wrestling with what the gospel means in their life, and praying and reading the Bible. And so that victory was not something that we could have scripted. It's not something that we could have planned. It's not something we could have predicted. We didn't know it was going to happen. And it was really not something we could have imagined. Right. But it happened in the midst of all of this hurt. But we were blessed because of the provision of our supporters here in America and the relationship that we have with you guys to encourage us and love on us and pray for us. Those are the things that enabled us to be in these people's lives for 2 years so that the relationship would lead to the moment where there's a breakthrough with them in the midst of their heart's deepest hurt.
That's a lot of cups of tea.
Yeah, a lot of coffee.
Well, listen, we so love you guys, and we're honored to partner with your ministry. Absolutely. There, and I would encourage anybody to go to Jordan. It's Absolutely. An amazing place.
Absolutely.
Culturally, it's an amazing place. Archaeological, it doesn't get any better.
Right.
If you want biblical stories, we can stay busy for a long time with Elijah and John the Baptist and Jesus and Moses, and a whole lot of things happened. And obviously Jordan wasn't the name of the country then, but lots of great stuff there. Maybe we'll make somebody read their Bible from this. But let me ask this question to finish. And I want to ask both of you because I think I'm going to get a little bit different answers, just male, female here. And you can fight over who goes first. But what if you could say one thing? I've got my. If you're wondering, if you don't read Arabic, this side says praying for Syria, and we're certainly not taking. This is not a political issue. This is about people needing Jesus. This is what we do, and so we just ask you to pray for Syria and the Syrian people, for that matter, the Jordanian people as well. But if you read Arabic, that's what the other side says. But we'll make these available for you. But I want to know what you want to say to the American church. What do they need to know about what is happening in Jordan, what is happening in Syria? Yes, we need to pray. And I was in a prayer group this morning, and we talked about the two factors. There's not enough prayer going on. We definitely need the Air Force. But on the other hand, the people that are starving to death, the Air Force isn't going to solve that problem. You need some people with boots passing out food. So what do we need to know? What do you want to say to the American church? Who wants to go first?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind, and it's not a political or academical discussion at all, it's just simply that don't let fear of what you don't know about hold you captive to doing anything in the situation. Because I see a lot of times people they don't understand anything that's really going on, or the things that they do understand, it's because they've been consumed by what the media throws at them, which is very dramatic and can be misconstrued in some ways. It saturates our culture here in America.
And not to be misunderstood, this wouldn't be the time to take a tour of Damascus.
Exactly. No, don't be foolish.
Right.
But be smart and seek out the people who do know something if you don't know as much or you don't know anything about what's going on. But don't let fear hold you back from just doing anything.
Right.
That would be my biggest thing.
Okay. Yeah. And like you said, building relationships was, and it's no different here.
Yeah.
You don't impact people by screaming at them. You impact them by loving them.
Absolutely. And I would just follow up on that because I was going to say that exact same thing too. So high five. Good job. How
long have you been married?
5 years.
Oh, you got it down. It's good.
I was going to say that too. Don't be paralyzed by fear. But I would say that each of us, we are the most ordinary people in the world. People want to think that we're special or insane or something for being missionaries in the Middle East.
You didn't have to leave the country. We didn't force you out of
No,
America.
we had really good jobs, and we loved it, and we had a beagle and all this stuff. We were just the typical American newlywed couple, and we really are the most ordinary people in the world. And if you come and visit us and you spend time with us, our lives in the Middle East are really quite ordinary. We don't have any great skills or programs or anything like that. And so when I look at my friends here in America, sometimes I think they've got it down better than I do when it comes to leading their families and being involved in their church and in their community. And so each of us, if you live in Florida, if you live in Tennessee, if you live in the Middle East, every one of us has something to offer, and every one of us has a role to play in the kingdom of God, and every one of us can have a role to play in reaching Muslims. And one of our good friends the other day in Tennessee, where we're usually from, was saying, I don't know what I can do to help Muslims. And we talked and we said, and she just finally said, I think I'm just going to pray that God would introduce me to a Muslim. And they live in a part of our city in Knoxville that is relatively affluent and doesn't have a lot of ethnic diversity, if you will. And she just said, I don't know what will happen, but I think I'm going to pray that God would introduce me to a Muslim. And within a week, wouldn't you know it, she's out walking in their neighborhood with her husband, and they run into one of their neighbors who's a Muslim. And they start talking about their kids and where their kids go to school, and start making plans to share dinner with each other. And so all of us have a role to play in reaching Muslims with the truth and the love of the gospel. And really, they're very ordinary people just like us. And if you know how to have friends, and you know how to love the person that's sitting next to you in the pew at church, you know how to love and you know how to be friends with Muslims. And you don't need to be fearful about anything bad happening to you, but you also don't need to be fearful of them hating you for a mistake that you might make or a cultural faux pas. They're people like you, and they'll understand if you approach them in love and you approach them with a gentleness that comes from God. They will appreciate that, and they will love you. And if you are engaging the Muslims in your workplace or at your PTA meeting or in your neighborhood, really, you're living the same life that we do. You're just living it here.
Well, you know, if they watch one of our previous episode, the lady named Hannah that we were talking about, the Syrian situation, we talked about the fact that, you know, love crosses all boundaries.
Absolutely.
And knowing that there's a God of love that will be with them and that will forgive them. I mean, it's a message that works anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. If we don't figure that out, and she likened, again, she's from Nineveh, and she likened the fact that for Jonah to come to her city 2,700 years ago would be like God sending you or me to talk to ISIS now.
Yeah.
You know, go talk to the head of ISIS, and that, you know, that's a frightening thing. God has not asked us to do that, but He has asked us to interact with our culture. Jesus said, we always translate that passage. You're the college guy, but you know, it says, you know, Matthew 28, go into the world, but that's not what it says. It says as you're going, and as you're living life, interact with people, make friends. Let them see how you live, and you guys you're a great testimony to that. So we'll have these bracelets available, but one more question and we'll finish. But what do we do? Is there a way to send food, clothes? Do we support an organization? Yes, we pray. Do we funnel millions of dollars to you so you can do this?
No, my accounting skills aren't that good. No, first of all, you guys are already supporting us in very generous ways, and we really appreciate that. And if we can continue that and continue building a relationship, then we are going to be blessed by that. And like Susan said, we feel that we're just your hands and feet. We're doing, for a lot of your members, we're doing what you wish you could do, or you would if you could, but you can't, and you're not going to, and that's fine. That's the way God wants it. And you've sent us, and we work in your state.
And
we're
we
your agents
do
there.
see you as an extension of us, but who knows where this thing's going to go? I don't know who's going to forward this video to a friend, to a friend, to a friend. What if they want to help? How do they help?
Call you.
Huh?
Call you.
Just work through us.
Call you.
Okay.
That's perfectly fine.
So we'll work through Tomoka Christian Church,
Absolutely.
and you can designate money to Matt and Susan, and if they have questions, we can talk more specifically
Absolutely.
about that.
We do like visitors. We love visitors, and we usually have a steady stream of people coming, want to just experience the Middle East, experience this firsthand, see what the reality is, because people know that what's on the news isn't necessarily the truth, because good news doesn't sell and bad news does.
Well, and I like Susan said, people are afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
Jordan is one of the most amazing places in the world, historically, archaeologically, and the food's pretty good too.
The food's great. The food's awesome. We have you can
We
just
got to work on the coffee in that country. That's the only problem I see.
it's pretty stout. But you can walk. You come and visit us, and you read the street signs of where the places where you are, and it's like reading the Bible. We live miles from 3 miles from Mount Nebo, 9 miles from the place where Jesus was baptized. All around us is the Bible. And all around us are people that need to hear the gospel, and also people that will welcome you with open arms.
Yeah.
And so come and...
Well, it's funny, one of our lines, and they heard this on the last one, they hear it from the pulpit here a lot, but I tell them the only people that have the luxury of not believing truth are people in the West.
Yeah.
The people in the East, whether you were talking to a Christian, a Jewish person, an atheist, they would never doubt Moses and Mount Nebo. They would never doubt the baptismal site of Jesus, John, Elijah, all these things. They all know what happened there. It's in their backyard. And here in the West, we're so smart that we know better than God and the Bible, and
Absolutely.
and it's when you hang out with people in the East, it's a whole different experience.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
well, we're honored to have you guys here, and thanks for all that you do.
Thanks for the relationship. We appreciate it very much.